How do you find culture fits for your dealership? In this episode, part 2 of our interview with Charles Holmes.
Welcome to Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers. Prepare to learn something new about the industry that keeps us moving.
Check out all our podcast content on our social media channels. We are at Down Payment Podcast on YouTube, Down Payment Podcast on Instagram, and Down Payment Pod on X. We're back here for our part 2 of our interview with Charles Holmes. He is our in-house master trainer, expert in collections, underwriting, and management. And we are going to continue our conversation about culture and its importance for the dealership. And in this part, we're going to talk about finding a good culture fit for your dealership. Charles, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Ted.
Well, we want to continue the conversation we were having in the last episode and talk about how do you hire for culture? How do you find employees that are a good culture match?
I think it starts in the whole interview process. Oftentimes in interviews, we talk about what the job is, what your expertise is, and what you can do for us. I think the secondary part of that must be, are you a good fit for us? And that's by asking and not the questions that everybody asks that are softballs and you get the same answers. Are you a team player? Everybody's going to say yes, and they're lying through their teeth. It's more of we need to ask questions that really look at our culture. And really look at where we are, and is this person going to fit, regardless of the position? Are they going to fit in our culture as a whole? So if we're talking about respect, we should be asking questions about respecting peers, respecting managers, respecting customers. If we're talking about being a team player, let's ask some real life situation questions to talk about being a team player and how you do things. And to be a good interviewer, not only have to listen to what the answers are, you have to read between the line to ask a follow-up question if you think something is not fitting correctly.
I love that. I think in our interviews, we tend to, especially nowadays, offer just such easy softball questions, and we talk too much as the interviewer.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the worst things we can do is talk too much as an interviewer and make a decision on how we like that person. Or we have a spot to feel this person probably can do the job, let's hire them. And I've been in situations where both those things happen. I really like this person, but how is this person going to fit on a team? When I was managing 10 teams and I had 10 managers, we would often talk about what your team dynamic is. Who would work on your team? Who would not work on your team? If we have to transfer somebody, are we going to transfer somebody who's meeting your team culture standards, which is also the company culture standards, but your team as a whole may have its independent culture standards, as long as it's feeding into the overall culture standards. So finding that right person is probably one of the most critical things we can do, because that person is going to be the new kid on the block carrying out our vision, carrying out our mission statement, carrying out our culture. That person is going to be critical. If in fact you hire somebody, and this happened, I'm going to use this as an example. We had an interview at 8:00 on Saturday morning. The hiring manager said, "Can you start at 10:00 today?" We didn't have background check. We didn't have drug tests. We had nothing done. But that person was on the phone because we had a spot to fill. And if you looked at the postings we had, it didn't talk a lot about culture. It talked about skill sets. But I think we need also in our job posting talk about culture. Are you willing to be a part of a team, a part of the company that has a vision, that has a way to go, that respects everyone that's there? We need to put those in our job descriptions, because as people look at those, they can say, this may be someplace I really want to interview. And in that interview, if you're respectful, If you're showing the culture that you fit, then guess what? That person may really want to come to work for you and really want to stay there for a long period of time. And we know that in this industry, people are there forever or they're there for very short times.
So true, so true. Uh, to take one really specific scenario, um, how do you feel that compensation schemes, whether commission, hourly, how does that play into culture? Does that have an effect?
Okay, are you ready? Because I'm going to rock everybody right now. Those schemes are demotivators. Bonus programs on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, or um, paying someone a commission, those are demotivators. And let me give you an example. We can talk about let's talk about car salesmen.
Yeah.
If every car salesman has a goal to sell 10, let's say 10 cars a month, right? And we're at the last 3 or 4 days, and he can't get anybody in, a car salesman is going to start setting up appointments for next month, for next week. A bill collector will start taking payments for next month, next week, because they're not going to get the money this month. So let me set myself up for next month. And if I'm having a bad month in the middle of the month and I know I'm not going to make my goal, why should I do things like, as a car salesman, call leads? Why should I do follow-ups? Why should I do all the things that I said I was going to do? Because it's not going to benefit me this month, you know. But if they were on a quarterly bonus plan, because I believe in bonuses, but I don't believe a weekly or monthly dollar bonuses is going to do anything for you. A commission, there are too many ways to manipulate that, and that is a demotivator, specifically for people who work well, for people who really are they're really about doing the job and not about the bonus. Bonus is secondary. I believe that some compensation plans are absolutely demotivators.
I think I've seen it so many times too. I think that's so true. I actually did a episode about the problems with commission compensation
Mhm.
schemes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And well, if you paid everyone that, and that, whatever that hourly rate is, or you put them on a salary for the week, whatever the case would be, but that's what your income is going to be. You're going to do things. You're more likely to do things like follow up. You're going to be more likely to do things like do some cold calls. You're going to do some things that will help generate those sales, because that's what you're being paid to do. And guess what? It's easier to hold somebody accountable when you're on a when you're not on a commission basis. We had a collector who manipulated, because there was a weekly bonus structure, right? And on Saturday night, if we are a certain dollar figure, there may be a cash bonus. They would manipulate the dollars posted so that they could get that cash every Saturday night. Um, and what they were doing was they were actually taking money from the company that they didn't deserve. And when they were found out, they were escorted out the door. However, how many times did that happen that no one paid attention to it because it was a good collector?
I think one of the problems with uh, commission compensation schemes
Mm-hmm.
is that it drives people to be motivated by personal success rather than that culture of mutual or group success that we want to have in a good culture, in a good work culture.
Absolutely. And I think that's why outside of the auto industry, you're seeing a lot of sales departments go to a go sales teams going to a salary base. Here's what you're going to make every 2 weeks or every week, whatever it is, but here's what your expectations are. And you know what? Every 6 months we're going to give you a bonus, but it's based upon how well you have done over the past 6 months. So you're going to cover everything in that area. And I know that sales is a way to make a commission is a way to make a lot of money, but it's also a demotivator to those people who are trying to manipulate the system. And we all know that in this business, in any business, there are people who are going to figure out a way to manipulate the system.
Absolutely. I think I think it's a magnet for bad culture practices.
Absolutely.
I I think
Absolutely.
we just had so many examples of culture gone awry in commissioned departments where the employees were paid by commission, that we could, it was easier to drive a better culture in the departments that were driven by an hourly or salaried
Absolutely.
compensation scheme.
Absolutely. And I think that why we're trying to encourage people to do more. But here's the deal. If you want me to sell 12 to 15 cars a month and I'm at 15 and I have a week left, I may not be doing cold calls. I may not be calling leads. I may not be following up on things because I'm already there.
Yeah, I made my bonus.
I'm there. I'm going to get paid. I'm getting paid in max. So why would I push any further? In collections, it's the same thing. I'm in my goal. You're not at yours, but you know what? I'm in mine. So I'm going to lay back and I'm not going to work as hard and I'm not going to get in your queue and help you. I'm going to do what's going to benefit me. Whereas if you were on if there was no commission, if there was a quarterly bonus or a semi yearly bonus, then you're going to get more out of those people. Even if you say to them as the collector, I need you to get in somebody else's queue because they're behind. The question then becomes, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? I'm at my goal. I've done my job. They haven't.
And that's where I think that process driven management fits, which we need.
Yes,
Our business is our processes. It's a collection of processes, and that process management is so tough with commissioned employees,
yes,
and that you can drive adherence to the process with hourly or salaried employees so much easier. And
absolutely.
it becomes part of your culture. Like, you know, your processes and adherence and compliance with your processes
Mhm.
is your culture. And as long as we're sticking to the processes, I'll be responsible for the results. I'll be
Right.
responsible for how many cars we
Absolutely.
sell, as long as you're complying with the program.
And
Um,
it's about your company's values. It's
yeah.
about not only culture but values. And are we going to hold somebody accountable for doing A, B, C, and D when actually, they're independent agents in some sorts, in some cases. You know,
There's so much. So often you get you get literally, especially in commission sales,
mhm,
where they're acting like an independent business within your own business, and
absolutely.
they're not acting in your best interests, and yet you're paying them sometimes extraordinary commissions. But then they're not following your processes. They're doing what makes them their commissions, or what they feel is making them commissions.
Absolutely. And
And
is the dollar value worth it? Because if somebody is going to be if is the dollar value of that commission worth it? Because no, it really is not. If you look at the way the things you have to do, the things you have to work through to make people do anything when they've reached their goal or they're not going to reach their goal, it becomes a major confrontation, a major conflict. Whereas if they were on a salary or an hourly wage, then you could easily say, "Here's what I need you to do. Forget your goal, but here's what I need you to do."
yeah,
And then there's more accountability in what you do. And I think part of the problem is with this whole culture thing is accountability, and that accountability is I want to do what I want to do and forget everybody else. And it's very difficult sometimes when you're that independent agent and you allowed everybody to be that independent agent to hold anyone accountable for their poor performance or bad behavior. When in all actuality, if you were in that corporate realm and you would say you have to do X amount of widgets and you have to do it this way, the accountability is there. When you're paying commission, not necessarily.
absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, Charles. Any final thoughts? Any final advice for
Yeah,
our listeners?
I think two things. Number one, take the interview serious. Understand what you're looking for, not only in the process, but in the culture. Who is going to enhance your business? That's critical. And number two, relook at compensation. Relook and say, if we were doing A, B, C, and D, would we get more bang for our buck? Those are two things I think are incredible. And again, take the interview seriously. Don't. It's you're looking for somebody who you're going to be with long term. You hope, and you want that person to come in and fit well.
Thank you, Charles.
Hey, thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Glad to
And
be
with
here,
that,
man.
hey, we appreciate you coming on for our first interview episodes, and we hope to see you back soon.
You betcha. Anytime.
Thank you, and it's been another episode of Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers. Check out our podcast on all our social media channels. We are at Down Payment Podcast on YouTube, Down Payment Podcast on Instagram, and Down Payment Pod on X.
Thank you for listening. Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers, is a production of Meta Financial Services Incorporated.